Welcome back to Afternoon Live. Do you promise yourself you're going to eat healthier or stop being chronically tardy only to show up to your appointment 10 minutes late with a cinnamon roll in your hand? Self-discipline is a tough skill. Here to explain the psychology behind self-discipline, we welcome back psychologist Dr. Leah Katz. Great to see you. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you. It's good to be here.
We've had resolutions. We're thinking about beginning a new year. And self-discipline can help us attain those goals. Can you talk about how that relates to goal setting and actually achieving the things that we set out to do?
Yeah, absolutely. It has everything to do with setting the goal and then executing and achieving the goal, because we can have a lot of lofty ideas and goals in mind, but unless we have the self-discipline, which any meaningful goal is a part of, then we're not going to be able to do it.
Are some people just better wired to be more self-disciplined, to eat healthier, to exercise, to achieve that financial goal? Are there some people that's easier for?
Yeah, I know, that's such an interesting question. So some research says some discipline might be inherited. There might be a genetic component to it, but mostly it seems like it's largely the nurture. So nature versus nurture, less nature, more nurture. It's more learned behavior, how we train ourselves as adults, and also what we were exposed to as children. So how disciplined were our parents? Like, that can definitely impact our ability to be disciplined as older people.
But we can still learn as adults, even if we have some bad habits. And you have some ideas of what people do successfully to achieve that self-discipline and reach their goals, beginning with just the commitment, just that basic.
Right, and it sounds small, but it's really a huge mindset shift. Just telling ourselves, this is something I'm going to do, not I should do it, or I want to do it, or I wish I could do it. A lot of this is really mindset work. So if we notice that we're talking to ourselves in that self-defeating kind of way, just commit.
Sure, and just avoiding temptation to begin with, too.
Right, exactly.
That can solve the problem.
So much. So if we want to eat a little bit better and more nutritious foods, so much of the time we find ourselves perpetuating the habits that are self-defeating. So just don't buy the stuff that makes it hard for you to stay on task and working towards that goal.
How do setting boundaries and prioritization come into this? Because there's just so many moving parts.
And that's, I think, a key factor in anything we're trying to do, is really just prioritizing, because we're all busy and we have competing demands. And when we feel overwhelmed, that's one of the biggest things that makes us not stay on track and achieve our goals. So if we prioritize and think to ourselves, what's important to me, maybe even like list out like the top 3 things going into a new year. What are the 3 things I really want to stay anchored to and accomplish? And then working towards those, that can help with the overwhelm.
Okay.
And prioritizing.
And habits too. We can create new habits even if we feel like we're stuck in some bad ones.
Totally. And repetition and starting small. That's a big thing too. And I know a lot of this is intuitive, but it's a really good reminder. It's not taking one big lofty goal and trying to do it, but breaking it into like the next thing. Something I like to ask myself when I feel overwhelmed is, what's the next thing I need to do that will take me closer to my goal? The very next thing, and it can be really tiny. It can be like, put on my workout pants. Like, that's it.
That's what they always say, right? Put your workout gear right next to your bed, so you'll see it in the morning.
It's the small things that create habits. It's not silly.
It does make a big difference. Mind over mood. Tell me about that. That's just a total mindset shift as well.
Totally. So a lot of times we think, I have to be in the mood to do this, or I have to want to exercise, or I have to really want to eat this food. And that's a big distortion, because if we don't lead with our mood, we don't wait to want to do it. We have to lead with our mind. What makes sense for me? What will take me closer to the value? How will I feel after I do this thing? And so leading with the cerebral part of ourselves, obviously still being kind to ourselves, not being harsh, but that's really important.
Yeah, and mention that as well, being kind to yourself. Giving yourself some grace, that it doesn't have to be this hard and fast rule all the time. You can take a break, you can take a step back, and that's okay.
And honestly, I think that's probably one of the most important things of achieving our goals, because we all know about discipline. A lot of us don't know how important kindness is to add to that equation. So I think discipline plus kindness equals achieving our goals. It's those 2 things. We can't have one without the other. We can't be disciplined without kindness, because that's too harsh. Kindness without discipline is indulgence, and we won't achieve what we want to achieve.
Life is messy and complicated. You never know what's going to come up, so you've got to give yourself that extra room. Okay, what about being really specific about your goals? That can help instead of being more abstract.
We have to. We have to. And so something I like to do is just map out the things that I want to accomplish over the month. So it's taking like a big enough chunk of time where we can accomplish stuff, and then mapping it out into the weekly tasks and the daily tasks, and getting really concrete. Email back this person, or reach out to this one thing, so making it really small, and then check it off after, because there's a piece of celebrating ourselves and how we are showing up that becomes a fuel to keep on practicing self-discipline.
Those basic to-do lists, they can be a task in and of themselves, but you're right, you get that reward at the end of it, and that's just encouraging.
And that can be part of the habit building. So having the task list, this is what I do. I keep it near my work, and before I start my day, I just like make a quick little I write some gratitudes, and I write a list of things that I want to do that day.
That's awesome. Okay, keep going, even when it's tough or you made a mistake.
Yeah, and that one is really important because I think sometimes the psychology behind this is we aim high, we do really good for a little bit, and then inevitably we'll make a mistake because we're humans, and and we will do that. And then there's this effect called the what the hell effect. We make one mistake, and then we feel really bad about ourselves, and then we just sort of self-sabotage because we need dopamine, we need something to make us feel better, so then we just keep on doing the thing that we're trying to avoid. So knowing that that is a piece of the psychology, if you make a mistake, have self-compassion, normalize it, and then keep on going. Anybody who has accomplished anything, and people watching this I'm sure can relate in their own lives, knows that we've just got, we'll make mistakes and we've got to keep on going.
And quickly, I have about 30 seconds left. What about changing your perception about willpower? That's really interesting.
So that one's really important too. See, this is so much mindset work because oftentimes, and I was just talking about this with someone today, we tell ourselves narratives about what we can and what we can't do. So we might say, oh, I'm terrible, I have no willpower. Well, then what are we going to do? But if we say, oh my gosh, look at how I'm talking to myself, let me reframe that and say, you know what, it's hard for me, but this is something I can build slowly and with time. We're already on a much better path.
We can do it.
We can do it.
I believe in us. Thank you so much. Great to see you.
It's good to see you too.
We'll have more on our website at katu.com. And we'll be right back with more Afternoon Live right after this.